Hello, this is Dennis Chase of the Easy Bake Coven of the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus. Today I'm going to be making chocolate chip citrus scones, but before I get into the actual recipe, I want to share some of my favorite tools that I'll be using as part of this recipe. One of the messages I want to give out today is having the right tool when you make your recipe. So these are all tools that I use when I'm making scones. You don't necessarily have to have all of these, but I found it makes it much easier. So from left to right, you have a stand mixer, you have a zester, you have a bench scraper, this is a pastry cutter, and a scale. So the first thing you want to do is mix together your dry ingredients, which are 1 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour, 3 tablespoons of sugar, 2½ teaspoons of baking soda powder, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And you just want to mix them together. In the same time, you can be preheating the oven to 400 degrees. Next, you want to add 1/3 cup of unsalted butter, and it should be cold, right from the refrigerator. So this is the butter in the dry ingredients, and we're just going to mash it like you're mashing potatoes with the pastry cutter until it is all mixed in and it looks like crumbs. Here we have all the butter cut in, and notice it's not perfect. You could also use a food processor for this, but it doesn't have to be, a perfectly homogeneous mixture. So here are my wet ingredients getting ready to go in. 1 beaten egg. I had a teaspoon of lemon extract. I grated 1 small lemon and 1 small lime. And there is 4 tablespoons of heavy whipping cream. And I'm going to be adding these directly into the dry ingredients a little over time. As promised, here come the chocolate chips, 1/2 cup. And then I'm going to add just enough whipping cream to turn this into a dough, usually another 1 or 2 tablespoons. Okay, I ended up adding 2 tablespoons of heavy cream. You can see it's pulling away from the bowl, so this is just about perfect. So I've turned my dough out on a lightly floured surface, and I'm just going to knead it about 7 or 8 times to help build up the gluten and make sure it's all evenly distributed with ingredients. Probably doesn't need much more than this. Make sure the flour is incorporated in. So now I'm going to cut my dough into 8 equal segments, and this is where the scale would come in if I were making these, say, for a baking show, and I wanted to make sure they were absolutely perfectly the same. So I would actually weigh the dough and then divide by 8 if I wanted to get 8 that weighed the same number of grams. But here's where the bench scraper comes in. I'm just going to divide the dough, just take it like this and divide it into 8 equal sections, and then get it ready for baking. Now here's where we have a matter of personal preference. You could take the 8 pieces of dough and just put them on a baking sheet and bake them, and they'd be just fine. I like my scones to be triangular, and I have a special scone baking pan that I use from Nordic Ware. You'll see from a little bit of shine that I have already prepared the pan with a little bit of Pam baking spray so that they do come out of the pan. So we will put these in, and I'll show you what they look like when they come out and give you the time that I use to bake them. The bench scraper can be used not only for getting your things off of the counter if they're a little bit sticky, but also for cleaning up the mess afterwards. A really handy tool. This is 7 minutes in. You see they're kind of taking the shape of their container. Not exactly. I'm going to turn the pan and put them in for another 7 minutes because I'm expecting that how long they're going to take, 14 minutes all told. So here are the finished scones as they came out of the oven at 16 minutes. You do want them to be a little bit brown on top. I want to show you the sides of one of the one of the scones because I used it in the pan. You see that golden brown on the side is just about perfect, and they're just about perfect on the bottom. So if I left them in past 16 minutes, they might have gotten a little bit overcooked. And lumpy is good. You actually want that for scones. It shouldn't look like a smooth, glossy French pastry. But there probably is a little bit of shine on the top of these scones because of a mistake I made in the recipe I had planned to do. I had meant to add about a teaspoon of lemon and lime juice to the scones in order to amp up that citrus flavor. And I forgot to do that. So just before they went into the oven, I squeezed a little bit of lemon juice over the top of the scones and added a little dusting of granulated sugar. So that will give it a little bit of extra citrus punch at the top and a little bit of sweetness as well. I'm going to store them in an airtight container just to make sure that they don't dry out. And that's your citrus chocolate chip scones. They're light and fluffy, and they're really good. I hope you enjoyed this installment of the Easy Bake Coven Bakes, and that you're looking forward, as I am, to the rest of the recipes presented.